Do y'all believe what you just saw? I hope you did. 47-10. The Jaguars get smoked on the road. And any hope that this team had of winning anything is gone.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. And I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day. Listen, man, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Welcome to the POSTCAST. This team is terrible. The Jacksonville Jaguars are tied with, right now, the Tennessee Titans, and it looks like the Cincinnati Bengals to have the worst record in the National Football League. But more important than that, they have stolen your hearts, your souls again, and heads ought to roll. There are no more excuses. They're bad. They're a bad football team. First of all, thank you to the everydayers for joining us every single day here on Locked On Jaguars. We appreciate that. We can be found on our YouTube page at Locked On Jaguars and also wherever you get your podcast audio-wise. But we can't bury the lead anymore. They are totally lost. They are an embarrassment to this city. They are an embarrassment to themselves. And we can sit here and nitpick on whose fault it is and what the point of it all is. But the bottom line is heads ought to roll. The GM needs to be fired. Trent Baalke needs to be fired. Doug Pederson needs to be let go. We appreciate the fact that this team had not had consecutive winning seasons in a long time. They won 9 games 2 years in a row. But the bottom line is, if you ask yourself an honest question, can the people in that building right now that's in charge, can they lift this organization beyond this point? At this point, they are worse than they were 2 years ago. And while you can appreciate what Doug Pederson did, fine. But now it looks like he's lost the team. Lifeless. Came out for the second week in a row. We talked last year about Christian Kirk when he said something about we need to get out of town or it was the week 2. Well, last week it was week 2. It was a home opener and they had no life whatsoever. This week they had no life again whatsoever, and they ran into a buzzsaw of a team that's strong where the Jaguars need to be strong, like on the offensive line, that they have a whole bunch of pass rushers. They're playing a bunch of young guys in their back 7 on defense. The Jacksonville Jaguars are absolutely terrible. And I don't see how it's going to get any better. Offensive linemen, the defensive line didn't do anything, even though Josh Allen got the ball out really quick, but they didn't do much of anything. Nobody was tackling. I know they're depleted in the secondary, but you know what? So is Buffalo. The bottom line is they have a culture. The Jaguars don't have a culture. What do they do? Let me correct that. The Jaguars actually do have a culture. They have a culture of losing. They have a culture of disappointing their fans. And somebody hit me up. They said we said they were going to win 12 games. Yeah, you know what? I'll make y'all feel good about the team. And I thought because they got a better kicker and they added Eric Armstead and they got better wide receivers and they were healthy on the offensive line, I thought that was all worth 3 games, especially when I think the Colts are terrible and the Titans are terrible. But now the Jaguars have joined the terrible. Remember, they won 9 games last year, and there were two other games that they should have won if they'd had a kicker. So it wasn't out of the question for me to think that they could win 12. And it's also me just setting a standard saying, okay, look, you guys need to at least win 3 more games that you won last year with all of those additions in free agency that you just had, with the fact that you were re-signing guys, and the fact that I'm going to let you know, don't try to blame this on me. Don't you blame this on me. I ain't got nothing to do with that foolishness. You need to blame the GM and the coach. The GM and the coach. And one of the warning signs that I told people about was this. When they said that they were going out to get Mitch Morse and Eric Armstead and Gabe Davis because they came from winning organizations, If you got to go and rent leadership and winning, then there's something wrong with you in the NFL. That's something that you build within yourself. Trent Baalke is the problem. He's not the only problem, but everybody thought all they needed was Jackson Powers Johnson. And I told you last year, no, it's not true. The offensive line stinks. Deion Dawkins got his contract extension, the first contract extension, right around Cam Robinson got his. Now, tell who's better. One guy's an all-pro, and the other guy looked like he can't block nobody. And I saw him out there yelling and screaming today before the game, trying to get people fired up. And I'm thinking, like, are you the person that should be doing that? Just lifeless. They had nothing. They had nothing. They came out of the locker room, and they had nothing. Nobody knows the answer. They didn't know the answer last week. You don't understand who's getting activated, who's not getting activated. They're rotating people on defense. I heard all this good stuff about Ryan Nielsen, and rightfully so, and I think he does it. But you can't come in here and fix the problems that are in this team right now. And granted, I know players are disappointed, but the bottom line is nobody's more disappointed than the fan base, because we all thought, and I said we all thought that they would build on the things that they've done the last 2 years, but they haven't. There's something wrong with this team, and there's something wrong with the people that run it. And until we realize that here, and until the people in charge, mainly Shad Khan, until they realize that, we got some problems. I'm going to tell you more about how I feel in just a second, on the second half of the postcast here. 47-10, the Jaguars get smoked up in Buffalo, and it ain't going to get no better because they got to go to Houston next week. But we'll talk about it in just a second here on Locked on Jaguars. How many of y'all watching the game with somebody and you worried about what the food going to taste like when you get there? Well, never fret, because when you walk in there and if it ain't right, just whip your phone out, download the DoorDash app, and order some of your favorites from your favorite local restaurants. That's right. And when you're there, use the promo code LOCKEDFALL24. That's LOCKEDFAL24 for 50% off, up to a $10 value when you spend $15 more on your first order. Limited time offer, terms apply. Promo is not valid with orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your game day to greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. Must be 21 and older to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available only in select markets. It's all about FanDuel. That's right, man. FanDuel is the absolute truth. Did y'all have fun yesterday on FanDuel? You should have, because there was some serious upsets, man. And FanDuel is America's #1 sports book, so they probably had all of the information for you if you got it right. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. What you'll need to do to get started is $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Now listen, you make a $5 bet whether you win or lose, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. It's guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, at FanDuel.com. Thank you for joining me here on the postcast. This is Tony Wiggins with Locked on Jaguars, where it's your team every day. What's next? I wonder if Shad Khan has already called Doug and Trent and asked them if they like wings, buffalo wings. How do they like them? Do they like them with blue cheese or ranch? Because they can go ahead and just stay up there in Buffalo. It's probably not going to happen. It's 3 weeks into the season. The only thing they could do at this point is name Ryan Nielsen the head coach and Mike McCoy the offensive coordinator. But it's a bunch of people who need to get fired. A bunch of people got fired last year, and this team looks like it got worse. With more resources, you can just add people. You can continue to add people from the outside, but until you fix what is really, really wrong with this team, nothing is going to change. And there are a lot of people saying that what's really wrong with the team is Shad Khan. I think what's really wrong with the team is football itself. The game itself is not at the forefront. I spoke about this during the Super Bowl when I saw Tony Khan being interviewed during Super Bowl week. I think it was on one of the major networks. And the issue that I had was he talked about wrestling. And I'm not talking about just wrestling. I'm talking about wrestling, whatever the AEW, whatever. If you're talking to somebody from Jacksonville and you're not talking about football, the nuts and bolts and the idiosyncrasies of how this team should be run, all of the little things, they kill it for social media. They kill it with naming the stadium after people. They kill it with all of these other things and getting business deals done and doing things and being the first people to go over to London and making that something that the NFL wants. All of those things are okay. But the bottom line is it comes down to blocking and tackling. It comes down to football. It's about loving the culture. It's about understanding what it takes to win. And they don't have, in my opinion, anybody in that building that understands that. With all due respect to Doug Pederson, he won a Super Bowl in Philly. He did get fired right after that. Now it's looking more and more like, as hard as it is to luck into something like that, it looks like that's kind of what happened. He's probably, I think he's a real nice guy. He's not the first person I've said that about, that I also said that I think needs to be fired. I said it about Dave Caldwell. I said it about Doug Marrone. I said it about a bunch of people. Gus Bradley was as nice as they come. I'm not going to bite my tongue. The bottom line is he does not seem like he can push the buttons of these players. He just doesn't seem like whatever it is, whatever he's leading with, it does not work. And it's not going to work. And it's not going to change anything here in Jacksonville. It's just not. And if you don't see that, I don't know what else to tell you. I really don't. And I'm dumbfounded right now, because as much as I thought that they had an opportunity to struggle, just like I thought they had an opportunity to actually get better, I did not think it was going to be this bad. They look totally disjointed. They look like a team that is tired of listening to whoever's telling them what to do. They look like a team that do not believe in the plays that are being called, the defenses that are being called. Other teams are scheming them up. They're throwing the ball to running backs and tight ends, people running across the shallow formations. It's just, to me, all of it's broken. There's no pass rush. Folks want to focus on Trayvon. That's fine. You can. He was absent tonight. Joshua Hines-Allen got $120 million. He ain't do nothing tonight. There's nobody in the middle doing anything. Nothing. And I know the Jaguars were without secondary. This is not about them missing 2 or 3 people in their secondary. It's not as if Buffalo just sat back there and just threw the wide receivers all night. They did any and everything that they wanted to do. The Jaguars had no answers. It seems as if when they walked out of that locker room, they may have believed in the plan, but as soon as they got punched in the mouth, they didn't believe in it. The game against Miami, the first 3 quarters, that was an aberration. The bottom line is if you knock them off of their square, they'll turn into exactly what they were before all the hype, before all of the promises of the offseason, and that's exactly what they've done. Ever since Travis Etienne fumbled that ball, and that's not the reason for this, but it was an opportunity for this to be exposed. But ever since Travis Etienne fumbled that ball, they have shown a lack of mental capacity to be able to get back on the horse and keep going. And that just means that's just not who they are. That is just not who they are. They don't have that toughness. And the one thing I've always said was it starts and stops with the offensive line, because even when things aren't going good, you can just line up and do what Buffalo did and just run it right down somebody's throat. You can line up. Other teams around the league are winning without even throwing the ball, man. The Jacksonville Jaguars have committed malpractice when it comes to building that offensive line, from missed picks, from missed free agents, and for not even attempting to just make a wholesale sellout to make sure that you protect your franchise quarterback. It's amazing to me. It seems like they took the advice of a bunch of fans that said, just give Trevor the ball and move out of the way. And you know what? How's that working out? Trent Baalke should have built his last team in the National Football League. He should have. Doug Pederson, they might let him keep going, but to me, he is somewhere near coaching his last game as a head coach in the National Football League. They ought to fire everybody. They absolutely should. And if they don't, it's just a matter of time. The Jaguars need a total reboot, a total systemic change of who they are, their DNA, and maybe by the time their stadium is built, we'll get it right. But no more quick fixes. No more quick fixes. They need to do everything in their power to gut this thing from the top to the bottom and start all over again, because it's not going to get any better whatsoever. All right, make sure you catch me tomorrow on Locked On Jaguars. I have a full podcast for you, and then slide on over to Locked On NFL, where you can check the madman Tyler Rowland out along with me, Tony Wiggins. Tyler Rowland in the morning giving you a double shot of espresso, and I can tell you right now he's going to lead with the Jaguars and how awful they are. And he covers the Titans, and he got some nerve to talk, but he can talk all he wants to today because he is dead right about the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then slide over into the barbershop where I can probably continue to pile on this team because they laid an egg. You can't get mad at national people anymore because they were on national TV and they look their absolute worst. So whatever anybody says about them, they absolutely deserve it. Make sure you tap into Locked On Jaguars tomorrow. You guys make sure you have a good evening if you can. Take care. Brush it off, man. It ain't on y'all. The fans have done everything that they could for this team. Now they need to start demanding that Shad Khan make some changes. I'll see you tomorrow on Locked On Jaguars.